Sports are an important part of the culture of the United States. The four major professional sports leagues in the United States are Major League Baseball, the National Basketball Association, the National Football League, and the National Hockey League. All enjoy massive media exposure and are considered the preeminent competitions in their respective sports in the world. 3 of those leagues have teams that represent Canadian cities, and all 4 are among the most lucrative sports leagues in the world. The top professional soccer league in the United States, Major League Soccer, has not yet reached the popularity levels of the top 4 sports leagues or its international counterparts, although average attendance has been increasing. Professional teams in all major sports operate as franchises within a league. All major sports leagues use the same type of schedule with a playoff tournament after the regular season ends. In addition to the major league-level organizations, several sports also have professional minor leagues, active in smaller cities across the country. Sports are particularly associated with education in the United States, with most high schools and universities having organized sports. College sports competitions play an important role in the American sporting culture, and certain college sports particularly college football and college basketball are as popular than professional sports. The major sanctioning body for college sports is the NCAA. Olympics. The United States has sent athletes to every celebration of the modern Olympic Games, except the 1980 Summer Olympics in Moscow, USSR, which it boycotted due to the Soviet war in Afghanistan. The United States Olympic Committee is the National Olympic Committee for the United States. American athletes have won a total of 70 medals at the Summer Olympic Games and another 253 at the Winter Olympic Games. More medals have been won in athletics and swimming than any others. Thomas Burke was the first athlete to represent the United States at the Olympics. He took first place in both the 100 meters and the 400 meters of the 1896 Summer Olympics in Athens, Greece. American athlete Michael Phelps is the most decorated Olympic athlete of all time, with 22 Olympic medals, 18 of them gold. The United States has won more gold and overall medals than any other country in the Summer Games and overall. The U.S. also has the second most overall medals at the Winter Games, trailing only Norway. Earlier United States mainly conceded to Soviet Union at Summer Games and to Soviet Union, Norway, East Germany at Winter Games only and now strongly fights with China only at Summer Games. The United States is the only country to have won at least one gold medal at every Winter Olympics, and has won the total medal count at Lake Placid in the 1932 Winter Olympics and at Vancouver in the 2010 Winter Olympics. During the Vancouver 2010 Winter Olympics, the United States set a record for most total medals of any country at a single Winter Olympics. The United States has hosted both Summer and Winter Games in 1932 and most occasions of the Games among other countries, 8 times, 4 times each for the Summer and Winter Games, 1904 Summer Olympics in St. Louis, 1932 Summer Olympics and 1984 Summer Olympics in Los Angeles, 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta, 1932 Winter Olympics and 1980 Winter Olympics in Lake Placid, 1960 Winter Olympics in Squaw Valley, 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. Individual sports, motorsports. Motorsports are widely popular in the United States, but Americans generally ignore major international series, such as Formula One and MotoGP, in favor of homegrown racing series. Americans, like the rest of the world, initially began using public streets as a host of automobile races. As time progressed, it was soon discovered that these venues were often unsafe to the public as they offered relatively little crowd control. Promoters and drivers in the United States discovered that horse racing tracks could provide better conditions for drivers and spectators than public streets. The result has been long-standing popularity for oval track racing while road racing has waned. However, an extensive illegal street racing culture persists. Indianapolis 500. Historically, open-wheel racing was the most popular nationwide, with the Indianapolis 500 being the most widely followed race. However, an acrimonious split in 1994 between the primary series, kart, and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway led to the formation of the Indy Racing League, which launched the rival IndyCar Series in 1996. From that point, the popularity of open-wheel racing in the U.S. declined dramatically. The feud was settled in 2008 with an agreement to merge the two series under the IndyCar banner, but enormous damage had already been done to the sport. NASCAR, the CART IRL feud coincided with an enormous expansion of stock car racing, governed by NASCAR, from its past as a mostly regional circuit mainly followed in the southern U.S. to a truly national sport. NASCAR's Sprint Cup Series generally harnesses an 8 million-person audience on television, as well as sold-out crowds at many tracks. Current NASCAR drivers include Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, Tony Stewart, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. NASCAR's most popular race is the Daytona 500 held each year at Daytona Beach, Florida in February. Other motorsports, in addition to auto racing, several other motorsports enjoy varying degrees of popularity in the United States: dirt track racing, sprint car racing, monster truck competitions, demolition derby, figure-eight racing and tractor pulling. Track and field. There are many track and field events which involve individual athletes competing, including sprints, middle and long-distance events, and hurdling. Regular jumping events include long jump, triple jump, high jump and pole vault, while the most common throwing events are shot put, javelin, discus and hammer. There are also combined events, such as heptathlon and decathlon, in which athletes compete in a number of the above events. The United States has frequently set world standards in various disciplines of track and field for both male and female athletes. Tyson Gay and Michael Johnson hold various sprint records for male athletes while Florence Griffith Joyner set various world sprint records for female athletes. Alan Webb's personal record on the mile is just 3 seconds short of the world record, while Mary Slaney set many world records for middle-distance disciplines. A particular turning point in U.S. track occurred in the running boom of the 1970s. After a series of American successes in various disciplines of running from the likes of marathoners Frank Shorter and Bill Rogers as well as track athletes Dave Wotel and Steve Fontaine, running as an American pastime finally manifested. Carl Lewis is also credited with normalizing the practice of having a lengthy track career as opposed to retiring once reaching the age when it is less realistic of gaining a PB result. The United States is home to school-sponsored track and field, a tradition in which most schools from middle school through college feature a track and field team. High school track and field in the United States provides excellent development for creating a big talent pool of athletes in the country. Due to the amount of American athletes who satisfy Olympic norm standards, the U.S. holds national trials to select the best of its top-tier athletes for Olympic competition. Tennis. Tennis is a popular sport in the U.S., with the pinnacle of the sport in the country being the U.S. Open played every fall in New York. Tennis is popular in all 5 categories. However, the most popular are the singles. The United States has had a lot of success in tennis for many years, with players such as Billie Jean King, Chris Evert, Jimmy Connors, John McEnroe, and Pete Sampras dominating their sport in the past. More recently, the Williams sisters, Venus Williams and Serena Williams, have been a strong force in the women's game. Outdoor sports, hunting and fishing are very popular in the U.S., especially in rural areas. Other popular outdoors activities in the country include hiking, mountain climbing, paintball and kayaking. In winter, many Americans head to mountainous areas for skiing and snowboarding. Cycling and road bicycle racing have increased in popularity, fueled by the success of cyclists Greg LeMond and Lance Armstrong. Other popular individual sports. Popular team sports, overview. The most popular team sports in the United States are American football, basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, and ice hockey. All 5 of these team sports are popular with fans, are widely watched on television, have a fully professional league, are played by millions of Americans, and enjoy varsity status at many Division I colleges. TV viewing record measures the game with the most TV viewers in the U.S. since 2000. American football. American football, known within the U.S. simply as football, has the most participants of any sport at both high school and college levels. The NFL is the preeminent professional football league in the United States. The NFL has 32 franchises divided into 2 conferences. After a 16-game regular season, each conference sends 6 teams to the NFL playoffs, which eventually culminate in the league's championship game, the Super Bowl. Millions watch college football throughout the fall months, and some communities, particularly in rural areas, place great emphasis on their local high school football teams. The popularity of college and high school football in areas such as the southern United States and the Great Plains stems largely from the fact that these areas historically generally did not possess markets large enough for a professional team. Nonetheless, college football has a rich history in the United States, predating the NFL by decades, and fans and alumni are generally very passionate about their teams. During football season in the fall, fans have the opportunity to watch high school games on Fridays and Saturdays, college football on Saturdays, and NFL games on Sundays, the usual playing day of the professional teams. However, some colleges play games on Tuesday and Wednesday nights, while the NFL offers weekly games on Monday and Thursday. Between September and Thanksgiving weekend, there is at least one nationally televised college or professional football game every day. Super Bowl Sunday is the biggest annual sporting event held in the United States. The Super Bowl itself is always among the highest-rated programs of all time in the Nielsen ratings. Notable NFL players include Larry Csonka, Roger Staubach, Dick Butkus, Joe Green, Bart Starr, Johnny Unitas, Walter Payton, Steve Young, Jerry Rice, Brett Favre, Emmitt Smith, and Ray Lewis. Notable current NFL players include Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Adrian Peterson. Indoor American football, a form of football played in indoor arenas, has several professional and semi-professional leagues. The Arena Football League, which plays by the formerly proprietary Code of Arena Football, was active from 1987 to 2008 and folded in 2009, but several teams from the AFL and its former minor league, AF2, relaunched the league in 2010. Most other extant indoor leagues date to the mid-2000s and are regional in nature. The Canadian Football League has a niche market in the United States. The league has not had any teams or played any games in the United States since the mid-1990s but has had at least some television coverage continuously since 2004. Roughly half of the CFL's players come from the United States, a number that is limited to half because of the league's domestic player quotas. Nationwide, the NFL obtains the highest television ratings for regular and postseason games among major sports. This situation began in the late 1960s and early 1970s with the establishment of the Super Bowl and merger of the existing professional leagues, the old NFL and the American Football League, into one NFL league. Since then, watching NFL games on television on Sunday afternoons has become a common routine for many Americans during the football season. Among the professional American football teams in the NFL which have become practically identified with their host cities are the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Dallas Cowboys, the Green Bay Packers and the Washington Redskins. It could also be said that college football enjoys unparalleled popularity in the southeastern states, where there are fewer professional teams in the major sports leagues. In many of these areas, college football is the most avidly followed sport, with the Saturday college games being the biggest event of the week. Baseball. Baseball and a variant, softball, are popular participatory sports in the U.S. The highest level of baseball in the U.S. is Major League Baseball. The World Series of Major League Baseball is the culmination of the sport's postseason each October. It is played between the winner of each of the 2 leagues, the American League and the National League, and the winner is determined through a best-of-7 playoff. Notable American baseball players in history include Babe Ruth, T.Y. Cobb, Cy Young, Ted Williams, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, Stan Musial, Willie Mays, Sandy Koufax, Yogi Berra, Hank Aaron, Nolan Ryan, Cal Ripken, Roger Clemens, and Jackie Robinson, who was instrumental in dissolving the color line and allowing African Americans into the major leagues. The more noted players of today include Derek Jeter and Albert Pujols. Baseball is popular in certain East Asian countries Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan and Latin American countries or territories such as the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Puerto Rico, Mexico, and Venezuela. Among the Latin American stars of the past who became legends in the major leagues were Roberto Clemente and Fernando Valenzuela. The most successful major league player from Asia is Ichiro Suzuki. As baseball developed over 150 years ago in the Northeast, it has been played and followed in this region longer than in others. The city of New York is for many sports fans synonymous with the New York Yankees and their logo. The team is noted as having been the team of many of the all-time greats in the history of the game, and for having won more titles than any other U.S. major professional sports franchise. The city was also host to two other highly popular baseball teams in the National League, the Brooklyn Dodgers and the New York Giants, before their transfer to California beginning with the 1958 season. The Yankees' chief rivals, the Boston Red Sox, also enjoy a huge following in Boston and throughout New England. A fierce National League rivalry between the former Brooklyn Dodgers and New York Giants was transferred to the West Coast when the teams became the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Francisco Giants, and California has always been among the U.S. states which have supplied the most players in the major leagues. Chicago sports fans also avidly follow the Chicago Cubs and to a lesser extent the Chicago White Sox despite the comparative lack of success for the teams, with Chicago Cub fans being known throughout the country for their passionate loyalty to the team despite their not having won a championship since 1908. Basketball. Of those Americans citing their favorite sport, basketball is ranked second behind football. However, in regards to professional sports the NBA is ranked third in popularity. More Americans play basketball than any other team sport, according to the National Sporting Goods Association, with over 26 million Americans playing basketball. Basketball was invented in 1891 by physical education teacher James Naismith in Springfield, Massachusetts. The National Basketball Association, more popularly known as the NBA, is the world's premier men's professional basketball league and one of the major professional sports leagues of North America. It contains 30 teams that play an 82-game season from October to June. After the regular season, 8 teams from each conference compete in the playoffs for the Larry O'Brien Championship Trophy. The American Basketball Association, active from 1967 until 1976, when it merged with the NBA, was the last major competitor of the NBA. Since the 1992 Summer Olympics, NBA players have represented the United States in international competition and won several important tournaments. The Dream Team was the unofficial nickname of the United States men's basketball team that won the gold medal at the 1992 Olympics. Basketball at both the college and high school levels is popular throughout the country. Every March, a 68-team, 6th-round, single-elimination tournament determines the national champions of NCAA Division I men's college basketball. Most U.S. states also crown state champions among their high schools. Many high school basketball teams have intense local followings, especially in the Midwest and Upper South. Indiana has 10 of the 12 largest high school gyms in the United States, and is famous for its basketball passion, known as Hoosier Hysteria. Notable NBA players in history include Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Bob Pettit, Bob Cousy, Walt Frazier, Jerry West, Julius Erving, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Michael Jordan, John Stockton, Karl Malone, Shaquille O'Neal and Jason Kidd. Notable players in the NBA today include Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Tim Duncan, Kevin Durant, Paul George, Dwyane Wade, James Harden, Dwight Howard, DeMarcus Cousins, Blake Griffin, Chris Paul and Carmelo Anthony. Ever since the 1990s, an increasing number of players born outside the United States have signed with NBA teams, sparking league interest in different parts of the world. Among the notable foreign-born players in the NBA today are two-time MVP Steve Nash, 2007 Finals MVP Tony Parker, and 11-time All-Star Dirk Nowitzki, the first European to win the NBA Most Valuable Player award. Aside from its huge popularity as a high school and college sport in Indiana and Kentucky, basketball may also be the most popular professional sport in cities during particular periods when the local NBA team may be enjoying an era of remarkable success, such as in Chicago during the dynasty days of the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan during the 1990s, or in Los Angeles ever since the Los Angeles Lakers developed as a perennial powerhouse and title contender since the 1980s, becoming the most popular sports team in the city and the league's glamour team in part due to the many Hollywood stars regularly attending their games. Professional basketball is also primarily followed in cities where there are no other sports teams in the four major professional leagues, such as in the case of the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Sacramento Kings, the San Antonio Spurs, or the Portland Trail Blazers. New York City has also had a long historical connection with college and professional basketball, and many basketball legends initially developed their reputations playing in the many playgrounds throughout the city. Madison Square Garden, the home arena of the New York Knicks, is often referred to as the Mecca of basketball. Ice hockey. Ice hockey is another popular sport in the United States. The sport is commonly referred to simply as hockey. In the U.S., the game is most popular in regions of the country with a cold winter climate, namely the Northeast and the Upper Midwest. However, since the 1990s, hockey has become increasingly popular in the Sun Belt due in large part to the expansion of the National Hockey League to the Southeast and Southwest U.S., coupled with the mass relocation of many residents from northern cities with strong hockey support to these Sun Belt locations. The NHL is the major professional hockey league in North America, with 23 U.S.-based teams and 7 Canadian-based teams competing for the Stanley Cup. While NHL stars are still not as readily familiar to the general American public as the stars of the NFL, MLB, and the NBA, average attendance for NHL games in the U.S. has been steadily increasing, and has surpassed average NBA attendance in recent seasons, buoyed in part by the NHL Winter Classic being played in large outdoor stadiums. Other professional leagues in the U.S. include the American Hockey League and the ECHL. Additionally, 9 U.S.-based teams compete in the 3-member leagues of the Canadian Hockey League. USA Hockey is the official governing body for amateur hockey in the U.S. The United States Hockey Hall of Fame is located in Eveleth, Minnesota. One of the nation's greatest ever sporting moments was the Miracle on Ice, which came during the 1980 Winter Olympics when the U.S. hockey team beat the Soviet Union 4-3 in the first game of the medal round before going on to beat Finland to claim the gold medal. Historically, the vast majority of NHL players had come from Canada, with a small number of Americans. In the 1959 Euro 60 NHL season, the league was 97% Canadian, and only one American-born player, Charlie Burns, was a regular in the league. 10 years later, in 1969 Euro 70, the situation had changed little. Canadians made up 95% of the league, and only 5 American-born players were regulars. Things began to change for Americans due to NHL expansion in the late 1960s and early 1970s, as well as the creation of the World Hockey Association in the latter decade. At the time, Eastern Europeans were largely unavailable for political reasons, and Swedes and Finns, though skilled, were seen by many NHL figures as lacking in physical and mental toughness. This gave Americans their first real opportunity to prove themselves in the league, and by the 1979 Euro 80 season, slightly more than 10% of NHL players were American-born. The success of European teams, especially the Soviets, against Canadians in the 1970s helped to change stereotypes against European players. During the 1970s and 1980s, the first wave of European players entered the league, mostly from Sweden, Finland, and Eastern Europe. After the fall of communism in Europe, many players from the former Soviet bloc flocked to the NHL. The late 2000s saw another surge in the number of American-trained players. Today, the majority of NHL players are Canadian, more than 20% are Americans, and virtually all of the remainder are European-trained. Notable NHL players in history include Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, Chris Chelios, Guy Lafleur, Steve Yzerman, Gordie Howe, Nicklas Lidstrom, Bobby Hull, and Bobby Orr. Famous NHL players today include Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin. College hockey has a regional following in the northeastern and upper Midwestern United States. It is increasingly being used to develop players for the NHL and other professional leagues, much in the way junior ice hockey does in Canada. The Frozen Four is college hockey's national championship. A variation of ice hockey, played primarily at the recreational level, is pond hockey. Several national tournaments are held in the northeastern and upper Midwestern United States each year. Ice hockey competes for most popular sport status in areas of northern and western New York State, the northern Great Lakes states and in some parts of New England. NHL teams such as the Detroit Red Wings, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Boston Bruins, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the New York Rangers are among the most popular sports teams in their home cities. Additionally, American youth hockey development has made great strides in recent decades. While Canada continues to lead the world in youth participation, the U.S. now has more youth hockey players than all other countries, apart from Canada, combined. However, as compared to the other major sports leagues, the sport has comparatively less fan following among minorities in the U.S., and the majority of players in the NHL are still Canadian or European rather than American. Soccer. Soccer has been increasing in popularity in the United States in recent years. Soccer is played by over 13 million people in the U.S., making it the third most played sport in the U.S., more widely played than ice hockey and American football. Most Division I colleges field both a men's and women's varsity soccer team. The United States men's national team and women's national team, as well as a number of national youth teams, represent the United States in international soccer competitions and are governed by the United States Soccer Federation. The U.S. men's team is one of only 7 teams in the world to have qualified for every World Cup since 1990. The U.S. women's team is tied with Germany for most women's World Cup championships, and is the only team that has never finished worse than third place in a World Cup. Major League Soccer is the premier soccer league in the United States. MLS has 19 clubs. The 34-game schedule runs from mid-March to late October, with the playoffs and championship in November. Soccer-specific stadiums continue to be built for MLS teams around the country. MLS has a particularly solid following in the Pacific Northwest, where there is a strong rivalry between the Portland Timbers and Seattle Sounders. Other professional men's soccer leagues in the U.S. include the Division II North American Soccer League, and the Division III USL Pro. Many American sports fans, as compared to decades ago, now follow international soccer competitions such as the World Cup. Soccer fans also follow foreign club competitions such as the UEFA Champions League and England's Premier League, and there is growing interest in Major League Soccer, the top domestic professional league. Younger generations of Americans are developing stronger fan appreciation for the sport, due to factors such as the U.S. hosting of the 1994 World Cup and the formation of Major League Soccer, as well as increased U.S. television coverage of soccer competitions. Many immigrants living in the United States also continue to follow soccer as their favorite team sport. Women's professional soccer in the United States has not seen sustained success. The Professional Women's League weighs €1. The Women's United Soccer Association and Women's Professional Soccer €1 each folded after 3 seasons. U.S. Soccer has since established a new professional league, the National Women's Soccer League, which started in 2013. However, at the lower levels of the salary scale, the NWSL is effectively semi-professional. Many notable international soccer players have played in the U.S. in NASL €, including Pella Copyright, User Copyright Bio, George Best, Franz Beckenbauer, and Johan Cruyff €, or in MLS €, including Roberto Donadoni, Lefham H. The Currency Us, David Beckham, and Thierry Henry. The best American soccer players enter the U.S. Soccer Hall of Fame. Particularly notable American male players in the Hall of Fame include Burt Patenaude, Alexi Lalas, Kobe Jones, Tony Meola, Eric Inalda, and Claudio Reyna. Notable female American players in the Hall of Fame include Mia Hamm, Christine Lilly, Brandi Chastain, Julie Foudy, and Michelle Akers. Other team sports. Other popular team sports in the United States, measured by number of participants, include volleyball, disc ultimate, lacrosse, rugby, lacrosse. Lacrosse is a team sport that is believed to originate with the Iroquois, a confederacy of indigenous tribes that reside in Canada and what is now upstate New York, and was popular among numerous tribes both within and outside the Iroquois in the eastern United States well before the arrival of European settlers. The Iroquois field their own separate national team, the Iroquois Nationals, in recognition of the Confederacy's creation of the sport. Lacrosse is most popular in the East Coast area. All forms of lacrosse are increasing in national popularity. NLL and MLL are the National Box and Outdoor Lacrosse Leagues, respectively, and have increased their following in recent years, with the NLL slightly more popular than MLL. Also, many of the top Division I college lacrosse teams draw upwards of €10,000 for a game, especially in the Mid-Atlantic and New England areas. Volleyball. Volleyball is also a notable sport in the United States, especially at the college and university levels. Unlike most Olympic sports which are sponsored widely at the collegiate level for both sexes, the support for college volleyball is dramatically skewed in favor of the women's game. In the 2011 Euro 12 school year, over 300 schools in NCAA Division I alone sponsored women's volleyball at the varsity level, while fewer than 100 schools in all three NCAA divisions combined sponsored varsity men's volleyball, with only 23 of them in Division I. This is partially due to Title IX. Female-oriented sports such as volleyball help balance a college's athletic opportunities for women with those for men. Beach volleyball has increasingly become popular in the United States, in part due to media exposure during the Olympic Games. Rugby union. Rugby union, popular in other English-speaking nations, is not as well known in the United States. Rugby is played recreationally and in colleges, though it is not governed by the NCAA. There are more than 457,983 registered and unregistered players, with more than a quarter being women. The semi-professional Rugby Super League is the premier domestic competition. The U.S. national team competes at the Rugby World Cup. In the sevens variation of the sport, the men's national team is one of 15 core teams that participate in every event of the annual IRB Sevens World Series, and the women's national team is one of 9 core teams in the IRB Women's Sevens World Series. Rugby participation in the U.S. has grown significantly in recent years, growing by 350% between 2004 and 2011. A 2010 survey by the National Sporting Goods Manufacturers Association ranked rugby as the fastest-growing sport in the U.S. Rugby's profile in the U.S. has received a tremendous boost from the IOC's announcement in 2009 that rugby would return to the Olympics in 2016. Since the Olympic announcement, rugby events such as the Collegiate Rugby Championship, the USA Sevens, and the Rugby World Cup have been broadcast on network TV. The USA Sevens, held every year in February, regularly draws more than 60,000 fans to Sam Boyd Stadium in Las Vegas. 2 recent American presidents have been rugby players. Bill Clinton developed an interest in rugby in England, playing at Oxford University. George W. Bush was a keen player, during high school and university, and was on Yale's first 15, and in 1968, he was part of their dramatic win over Harvard. Rugby formed the basis of modern American football. The two sports were nearly identical in the late 19th century but diverged into distinct, incompatible codes by the start of the 20th. Cricket. Cricket, another common sport in Commonwealth countries, is not a popular sport in the U.S. Many amateur cricket leagues have been formed by Indian, Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Australian, South African, English and Caribbean immigrants, and as a result, the sport has made limited inroads because of a large influx of migrants from cricketing countries who make up almost 16 million of the American population. Cricket used to be the most popular sport in America during the 18th and early 19th centuries, when it suffered a rapid decline as the homegrown sport of baseball overtook cricket as the bat and ball code of choice. The first intercollegiate tournament in America was a cricket tournament. The first annual Canada versus U.S. cricket match, played since the 1840s, was attended by 10,000 spectators at Bloomingdale Park in New York. The U.S. versus Canada cricket match is the oldest international sporting event in the modern world, predating even today's Olympic Games by nearly 50 years. The U.S. participated in the 2004 ICC Champions Trophy where they were comprehensively beaten by Australia and New Zealand. United States of America Cricket Association governs the professional cricket in the country. United States cricket team currently plays in World Cricket League Division 4 to work their way up to 2013 Cricket World Cup qualifier in order to enter 2015 Cricket World Cup. In 2011, he played America's Region 2020 Division 1 tournament and qualified for the 2012 ICC World 2020 qualifier. United States cricket team also plays in the ICC Americas Championship and were qualified for ICC Intercontinental Cup in the past. United States Youth Cricket Association formed in 2010 to develop the interest in sport among the young kids. Cricket is one of the most watched pay-per-view sports in the U.S., and multiple channels are provided by DirecTV, Dish Network and Comcast TV services. Starting 2012. ESPN will broadcast cricket on ESPN3 and on its regular channels. The only professional cricket stadium in the U.S. is Central Broward Regional Park located in Lauderdale, Florida. The Leo Magnus Cricket Complex in Los Angeles and Philadelphia Cricket Club in Philadelphia are few other established cricket grounds in the country. Ultimate and disc sports. Alternative sports, using the flying disc, began in the mid-60s. As numbers of young people became alienated from social norms, they resisted and looked for alternative recreational activities, including that of throwing a frisbee. What started with a few players like Victor Malafronte, Zed Wayand and Ken Westerfield experimenting with new ways of throwing and catching a frisbee, later would become known as playing freestyle. Organized disc sports, in the 1970s, began with promotional efforts from Wham-O, a few tournaments and professionals using frisbee show tours to perform at universities, fairs and sporting events. Disc sports such as freestyle, double disc court, guts, disc ultimate and disc golf became this sport's first events. Two events, the team sport of disc ultimate and disc golf, are very popular worldwide and are now being played professionally. The World Flying Disc Federation, Professional Disc Golf Association, and the Freestyle Players Association, are the official rules and sanctioning organizations for flying disc sports worldwide. Disc Ultimate is a team sport played with a flying disc. The object of the game is to score points by passing the disc to members of your own team, on a rectangular field, 120 yards by 40 yards, until you have successfully completed a pass to a team member in the opposing team's end zone. There are currently over 4 million people that play some form of organized Ultimate in the U.S. Ultimate is also being played professionally with two newly formed leagues, the American Ultimate Disc League and Major League Ultimate. Other sports, Australian rules football in the United States is a fast-growing team and spectator sport that was first played in the country in 1996. The United States Australian Football League is the governing body for the sport in the U.S., with various clubs and leagues around the country. The national championships are held annually. The United States men's national Australian rules football team and the women's national team both regularly play international matches and play in the Australian Football International Cup, a tournament for all competing countries apart from Australia. Curling is popular in northern states, possibly because of climate, proximity to Canada, or Scandinavian heritage. The national popularity of curling is growing after significant media coverage of the sport in the 2006 and 2010 Winter Olympics. Gaelic football and hurling are governed by North American GAA and New York GAA. They do not have a high profile, but are developing sports, with New York fielding a representative team in the All-Ireland Senior Football Championship. Team handball, a common sport in European countries, is seldom seen in the United States. The sport is mostly played in the country on the amateur level. Handball is played in the Summer Olympics, but is not sanctioned by the NCAA. All college and university teams play as club teams. The sport's governing body is USA Team Handball. Inline hockey was invented by Americans as a way to play the sport in all climates. The PIHA is the league with the largest number of professional teams in the nation. Street hockey is a non-standard version of inline hockey played by amateurs in informal games. Water polo does not have a professional competition in the U.S., so the highest level of competitive play is at the college level and in the Olympics. The NCAA sanctions water polo as a varsity sport for both men and women, but sport is not popular in the U.S. beyond the West Coast, and no team outside of California has ever reached the finals of the NCAA Division I Men's Water Polo Championship. Other team recreational activities. Angleball is a high-fitness sport developed in the 1940s by College Hall of Fame football coach Rip Engle as a way for players to maintain physical fitness in the off-season. It has light contact and minimal rules. Angleball is used for muscle conditioning in the NFL, and for fun by colleges, schools, camps and all age groups. Because of Angleball's light contact gameplay that emphasizes skill, accuracy and endurance, it has been called the best game ever developed for groups up to 40 composed of mixed ages and genders. Angleball gameplay is simple. Two large balls are placed atop standards at opposite sides of a field. Teams pass a smaller ball back and forth, attempting to knock the other team's ball off its perch with a smaller ball. An offensive player who is touched by a defensive player cannot shoot for a goal and has 3 seconds to pass the ball. Capture the flag is played recreationally by adults and children. Dodgeball is played traditionally by children in school, though adult leagues in urban areas have formed within the past 10 years. A caricatured version was portrayed in the 2004 film comedy Dodgeball, a true underdog story. Kickball is also played recreationally by adults and children, especially at the elementary school level. Its rules are largely identical to baseball, except that no bat is used and instead a large rubber ball is rolled along the ground for the batter to kick. Roller derby is a contact sport played on roller skates that has had brief surges of popularity throughout the 20th and 21st centuries. Roller derby was portrayed in the 2009 film Whip It and in the 2012 documentary Derby, Baby. A story of love, addiction and rink rash. Since September 2009, there were 350 women's, men's, and junior leagues in the USA. There are multiple associations that govern roller derby. JRDA equals Junior Roller Derby Association, MADE equals Modern Athletic Derby Endeavor, MRDA equals Men's Roller Derby Association, OSDA equals Old School Derby Association, RDCL equals Roller Derby Coalition of Leagues, USARS equals USA Roller Sports, WFTDA equals Women's Flat Track Derby Association, WFTDAAL equals WFTDA Apprentice, Organization of American Sports, Amateur Sports. The extent in the United States to which sports are associated with secondary and tertiary education is rare among nations. Millions of students participate in athletics programs operated by high schools and colleges. Student athletes often receive scholarships to colleges in recognition of their athletic potential. Currently, the largest governing body of collegiate sports is the National Collegiate Athletic Association. High school and college sports fill the developmental role that in many other countries would be the place of youth teams associated with clubs. The major professional sports leagues operate drafts once a year, in which each league's team selected eligible prospects. Eligibility differs from league to league. Baseball and ice hockey operate minor league systems for players who have finished education but are not ready or good enough for the major leagues. The NBA also has a development league for players who are not ready to play at the top level. Especially in basketball and football, high school and particularly college sports are followed with a fervor equaling or exceeding that felt for professional sports. College football games can draw six-digit crowds and, for upper-tier schools, sports are a significant source of revenue. Professional sports. For the most part, There is no system of promotion and relegation in American professional sports. Major sports leagues operate as associations of franchises. The same 32 teams play in the league each year unless they move to another city or the league chooses to expand with new franchises. All American sports leagues use the same type of schedule. After the regular season, the 16 teams with the best records enter a playoff tournament leading to a championship series or game. American sports, except for soccer, have no equivalent to the cup competitions that run concurrently with leagues in European sports. Even in the case of soccer, the cup competition, the Lamar Hunt U.S. Open Cup, draws considerably less attention than the regular season. Also, the only top-level U.S. professional teams that play teams from other organizations in meaningful games are those in MLS. Since the 2012 season, all U.S.-based MLS teams have automatically qualified for the U.S. Open Cup, in which they compete against teams from lower-level U.S. leagues. In addition, 4 of these teams qualify to play clubs from countries outside the U.S. and Canada in the CONCACAF Champions League. NBA teams have played European teams in preseason exhibitions on a semi-regular basis, and recent MLS All-Star games have pitted top players from the league against major European soccer teams, such as members of the Premier League. International competition is not as important in American sports as it is in the sporting culture of most other countries, although Olympic ice hockey and basketball tournaments do generate attention. The first international baseball tournament with top-level players, the World Baseball Classic, also generated some positive reviews after its inaugural tournament in 2006. Government regulation. No American government agency is charged with overseeing sports. However, the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports advises the President through the Secretary of Health and Human Services about physical activity, fitness, and sports, and recommends programs to promote regular physical activity for the health of all Americans. The U.S. Congress has chartered the United States Olympic Committee to govern American participation in the Olympic movement and promote amateur sports. Congress has also involved itself in several aspects of sports, notably gender equity in college athletics, illegal drugs in pro sports, sports broadcasting and the application of antitrust law to sports leagues. Sports media in the United States. Sports have been a major part of American broadcasting since the early days of radio. Today, television networks and radio networks pay millions of dollars for the rights to broadcast sporting events. Contracts between leagues and broadcasters stipulate how often games must be interrupted for commercials. Because of all of the advertisements, broadcasting contracts are very lucrative and account for the biggest chunk of pro teams' revenues. Broadcasters also covet the television contracts for the major sports leagues in order to amplify their ability to promote their programming to the audience, especially young and middle-aged adult males. The advent of cable and satellite television has greatly expanded sports offerings on American TV. ESPN, the first all-sports cable network in the U.S., went on the air in 1979. It has been followed by several sister networks and competitors. Many of the professional sports teams run their own cable networks. Yankees owner George Steinbrenner started the YES Network, which broadcasts primarily Yankees games and television shows. His starting of his own network led to almost all teams having a station for their franchises. Despite the size of the sports market in the U.S., the country does not have a national daily sports newspaper. This is because the contiguous 48 states spread across 4 time zones, and games on the West Coast may not end until early morning in the East. This makes it difficult to distribute a national newspaper with the scores of late games in time for morning delivery. However, there are many weekly American sports magazines, the best known being Sports Illustrated and The Sporting News, and the development of the Internet also has allowed for national sports websites to flourish. Sports are also widely broadcast at the local level, ranging from college and professional sports down to recreational and youth leagues. Internet radio has allowed these broadcasts to reach a worldwide audience. Most popular sports in the United States, In the broadest definition of sports physical recreation of all sorts the four most popular sports among the general population of the United States are exercise walking, exercising with equipment, swimming and camping. The most popular competitive sport is bowling. Other most popular sports are fishing, bicycling, weightlifting, aerobics, and hiking. According to the 2013 Harris poll, the 6 sports with most fans are American football, baseball, basketball, auto racing, ice hockey and tennis. In the 1985 poll, 31% of fans preferred football, 23% baseball, 12% basketball, 5% auto racing and 5% tennis. Baseball versus football. Though baseball has historically been called the national pastime, American football has considerably grown in popularity with the advent of television over the last several decades. Most debates about America's most popular sport tend to center on the degree of Americans' identification with either of these two games. The question is a difficult one to resolve. Advocates of baseball point to the overwhelming number of baseball tickets sold annually in the United States and Canada, compared to NFL football. It is likely that the average American sports fan will attend many more Major League Baseball games than NFL football games in his or her lifetime, due in part to baseball's longer schedule and football's higher ticket prices. Advocates of football, in turn, point to football's large television audience, including the Super Bowl, though the sport is also facing some negative publicity in the world of youth sports due to media coverage of documented health and injury risks posed to players, including the potential long-term health concerns which concussions pose for children or teenagers. Certain teams of both sports, such as the Green Bay Packers, Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees, St. Louis Cardinals, New England Patriots, Oakland Raiders and Pittsburgh Steelers, have cultivated famously loyal fan bases across the country. In many cases, identification with a certain football or baseball team is a matter of family inheritance going back many generations and local identity. Furthermore, the popularity of each, as well as of other major team sports, may vary depending on region, ethnicity and age. Organized college and high school sports. The most popular college sports, measured by NCAA reporting on varsity team participation, are football, baseball, softball, track and field, soccer, basketball, cross-country running, and swimming diving. The most popular sport among female athletes is soccer, followed closely by track and field. Among organized high school sports, the sports with the highest number of participants are football, basketball, track and field, baseball, softball, soccer, and cross-country. Wrestling is the 6th most popular sport for boys, while volleyball is the 3rd most popular sport for girls. Popular high school sports in various regions of the U.S. include the Texas High School Football Championships, the Indiana Basketball Championships, and ice hockey in Minnesota. List of sports leagues in the United States, the 5 major sports leagues. Other team sports leagues. Other individual sports leagues. See also, doping in the United States at the Team Sports International Competitions, Sports Museum of America, Professional Sports in the Western United States, References.